All right, my friends, welcome back. We're doing a virtual press event for Arendal Sound. We're here with the head honcho, Jan. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Gene. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How about
Awesome to
yourself?
have you. So you say Arendal, I say Arendal. What's the right way to pronounce the company name?
Um, Actually, I wouldn't. The local would say Arendal, but that's not how we say it. So it's Arendal. Arendal.
Okay. All right. So I'll try to
Arendal.
remember that, guys. I know people are going to be correcting me down below when I say Arendal. It's just a habit at this point. But I wanted to have you on the channel because we've been covering your products now for a little over a year. And it's been quite fascinating just to learn about your company. Obviously, you're not from the domestic area, you're from Norwegian. You're a Norwegian company. And it's quite amazing that you guys have made such a great penetration into the domestic markets over the last year or two. I first found out about your speakers actually through Matthew Pose and also through Spare Change, our friends at Spare Change. And when I saw the build quality, I was like, you know what? We got to get some in for review. We got to figure out what this company is all about. But more importantly, I always like to know the history of a company. And you guys have quite a fascinating story. So I would love to hear you tell us why, what the name means, first of all, why you decided to go and design loudspeakers, and what your whole company philosophy is all about.
Yeah, I mean, Arendal comes from the town all the way south in Norway. So Arendal, the city, and the whole mentality of the company is doing business consumer. That's kind of premium products direct, consumer direct worldwide. So we do globally warehousing in China, Rotterdam, and in Chicago now in the US. So yep, I mean the background is pretty simple. I'm just a simple guy from Norway and son of a fisherman, and my family and myself lives in Tromøy, outside Arendal, and I live with my lovely wife Heidi and my two boys, Leander 10 and Marcus 13. So it's just everything started because audio has always been my passion, and
Mhm.
my dad started an old-fashioned TV shop in the 70s, and I started there when I was about 14. Worked part-time after school, the weekends, and so forth. So I was indoctrinated with all these kind of equipment, and from there I studied 8 years electronics myself. I went working in seismic offshore, but I obviously knew my calling was audio. So then we started L Sound, a company called L Sound in 2005. That was a company that we imported and distributed selected brands directly B2C. And from there, after 10 years doing that, we founded Arendal Sound
So you're
in
looking at around
2015.
2000, 2014 is when Arendal Sound first became public and started selling speakers.
Yeah, we founded the idea and founded the company in 14, and then we did our first launch in end of 15. That was our first launch.
Got you. Now, have you always been a direct-to-consumer model, or did you sell locally at first?
We have always sold direct B2C. No dealers, always business consumer. So we think that for us, we was like one of the few back in 2005. So in those 10 years, we have collected a lot of experience, know-how, what not to do, what to do, what was working, and so the time was really changing rapidly, even from 2005 to 2015, and now even more from 15 to now. But
Mhm.
the thing is, for the B2C from our end, is that we can control end to end from the designs, how we do things, how we manufacture. If we I mean, everything from the marketing point of view, the consumer benefits, how we want to engage, how we want to create the whole experience for the customer. That's, to us, everything comes down to customer experience. You can have the best product, you can have the best mumbo jumbo marketing and so forth, but to us, everything comes down to the customer and their experience and the journey they have with us. That's kind of what's the differentiating factor.
And I just want to give a shout out. You have Brandon Terry in the chat over here, and he's been kind of the liaison for the United States customer support, and just an incredible resource of knowledge. I mean, anytime I have a question about your products, he knows the details. I see he's very proactive with our readers when they have questions, and it's great to have that kind of support for your products, because when you're selling direct like this, you know, you can't go out and easily demo the product, and you can't find a salesman that knows about the product. So to have someone that's on this all the time and to kind of be the face locally here is just, it's a great resource for you guys. And he's fun. He's a pleasure to work with.
Yep. I mean, a company only exists because of the people inside it. That's an old saying, but we have really experienced that greatly the last few years. And Brandon is one of the awesome A-team members of this company, and we vet them through a tedious process in our hiring process. So we have high expectations for new people. You know, that we have a culture of freedom and responsibility, and there's so much we want to give back to the team itself, so they can flourish, they can have an alignment with the team mission and so forth. So, I mean, it wasn't any coincidence that Brandon was like a good guy, because we knew that when we had him onboarded earlier this year. So he's an incredible guy, yes, as you say, and he's funny guy, and that's important.
For sure. So one thing I want to ask you, and something we kind of gush about in our reviews, we always look at the build quality of products. I think it says a lot, even if it's not always about a performance thing, it's about a craftsmanship thing, right? It's about something that you know is going to last, something that's backed up with a long warranty. What's the story about why your speakers are so overbuilt?
When the first product series was the 1723, we wanted to go for the statement at that time being. And why it's so well built is that when you have the concept of doing consumer direct globally, first of all, you had to have a bulletproof product. You can't ship junk, as Steve Jobs said at Apple. You'd never ship junk. And that's kind of the mentality here too, that we want to over-deliver on the product. One thing is that we obviously want to over-deliver on the customer support with a great team, but when the product arrives, everything from packaging, we don't use plastic wrapping. We use high quality fiber cloth wrapping, sewed, really nice, high quality. Everything is EPA. Everything is packed up in a nice way, in a professional way. So when they open it, they already have this ownership feeling of the product, and that is kind of an important step for us. That is one part of this journey I'm talking about, this customer journey. And when they open it up, they take off the as we call it, the sock or the bag, and that's when it's like the first time you saw a flower, right? When you're a small child, you know, and you got this aha moment, and that's kind of the thing that it's the first impression that makes the difference. And obviously it has to stand up to its expectations when you connect, when you listen, crank it up and do its thing. But most customers are actually reporting their experience based on that before actually listening to it. So we didn't want to ship junk. We don't use plastic on the 17-3. We use magnetic grills. There's no brass. There's rhodium copper plated, cover, and aluminum backplates, no plastic. So we just want to make a new statement to the market. That's kind of the bottom line.
Well, I could tell you that, it is impressive when you unbox an Arendal speaker and you see the build quality and the craftsmanship. It bellies the price. Like, you just don't think you're going to get a speaker that's built like this. I mean, we've reviewed speakers that are 2x, 3x the price that aren't built quite as well as the Arendals, and it almost, I could see some audiophiles not taking your product seriously enough because the prices are, and I don't want to say this too loud because I don't want you to raise your prices, but it's almost like you can't take them as seriously because they're so affordable for what you're getting.
Yes, and that is kind of what's working against our concept in the short run. In the beginning, we had to fight because how can it be that good when the price is this? Because they're used to be honest, overpriced products through multi-level of overhead in distribution, dealerships, and so forth. So we ship things directly, but the people now has the mentality they simply understand it. We have a clean model, consumer direct, and then we also explain that thoroughly for them. But yes, a $3,000 speaker, why should it sound better or equally to something called, priced at $10,000?
Mm-hmm.
It is pure math. It's just basic math. When more steps needs more profits, then the price goes up.
I got you.
That's a simple math.
So I guess one question I have for you is your whole modeling nomenclature. What's behind the numbers? You have the 1723 series. You have the 1961 series. Are these significant dates in history, or is it just some type of number that resonates with you for whatever reason?
It's at the end of the day, you still just have a box, right? A cabinet with drivers into it making sound. Okay, There's some with different designs and whatnot, but we love storytelling. So it's just creating a story, again, going through the customer journey, going through the story, right? So to make that more mystical, or whatever you would like to call it, the 1723 is when the Arendal town got its first trading privileges. Okay, so that was kind of, and then we thought that, okay, that's a good way to call it 1723, because that was when everything started, right? So that was the clean sheets, everything started. 1961 was to create the analogy in terms of building a bridge from high performance products, which are normally for those who have more money, building the bridge to those people on the island, which is then the bridge from the mainland to my island, which was created in 1961. So we created this kind of the story, just again, have a storytelling around it. So there's nothing more into it than that.
Oh, I like that. So explain to me the whole process of why you guys went after the THX certification on the 1723 models. Was that something that you were looking at in terms of you wanted to meet their performance criteria, or was it more because you wanted the brand recognition that you had THX certification, or both?
First of all, I think we wanted it because we did definitely. We have already designed. First of all, we had already designed the speakers. The 1723 and the 1723S was already designed before we even applied for the THX. So we did it because we want kind of the awareness around it, and we knew for many people it was of a high standard. There are also some customers thinking the products are tuned to meet some kind of voicing for what THX dictates. But for us, it's all about performance measurements. So we designed it, first of all, went through it, and according to THX, our speakers was the first speakers passing through the certifications with any changes. So again, there was no design directions of the speakers that it had to meet their measurements demands, but we overcame their we passed through their measurements pretty easy.
So in other words, you already designed the speaker, then you submitted it to THX, and then they
Yes.
said, you know what, this speaker's already good. You don't need to make any changes.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool.
Mhm.
So what is the customer getting between, if you go from a 1961 to a 1723, and let's say you just play it at nominal listening levels, you're not driving them hard. Is it just an output difference between the two speakers, or is there an actual audiophile level higher in the 1723 series over the 1961?
First of all, the 1961 was introduced after the 1723 series, and we used most of everything that came from the 1723 just trickled down to a smaller box and a lower price. And there's a lot of similarities from 1961 up to the 1723. So yes, performance-wise, there's a difference because of the size, and there's the 1961 is using 5.5 inch woofers versus 6.5 and 8-inch woofers, and but performance-wise, yes. Also, the 1723 sounds better, so everything's better on the 1723, but it's not like night and day. So you can easily, for people who wants just they focus on the stereo, the stereo music listening sessions, and then many has done like this 1961 center channel as a center, and then using the surrounds too with great result. So there's no issues doing that because we have tried to voice match it as close as we can.
I gotcha.
But it's
So
still
one
the same,
question,
still the same level of quality. I mean, we don't use vinyl on them. We don't use lesser quality of we still use HDF paint. We don't use plastic in that. We use some rubber around the waveguides, good quality parts. So there is no degrade on the speakers itself. So it's still the same premium. So it has nothing to do with entry level. It's just still as much performance level as you can expect.
I got you. So one question I get often from people is, when they're looking at purchasing one of your systems, they wonder, why do you guys have a two-way center channel instead of a three-way center channel like a WTMW, where there's a vertical alignment between the mid-range and the tweeter? And I'd like to know your thoughts about, because both of your series, the 1961 and the 1723, have an MTM for the center channel, which typically you place horizontally under the TV. What was your reasoning behind that?
You know what? I'll let that question to be open when Thomas is coming on next time, when he's going to go tech deep
Okay.
on a session with you. Then he can rip up a speaker, show you everything, and get you all the techie details on it.
Well, I can tell you in our measurements, according to James Larson, that the speaker performs really well, even horizontally. And I think a lot of that has to do with the waveguide that you're using. That, you see that big faceplate on that tweeter. There's a lot of advantages to that design. And when we have him on next time, maybe we should go over that and talk about why you guys have that, because it's kind of your signature look as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we use and we will probably use always the waveguide as a dispersion control to get a better polar response, an off-axis polar response, and so forth. So it has done with the design of the team of ours running by Thomas. They seem to have really hit the perfect, the design touches on it with that kind of design approach. So yes, we have had a success on it.
So we have a question here I wanted to bring up. I think it's a good one because I get this all the time when I do consultations and I recommend your speakers in my services. Should somebody go with monitors or towers when they're buying subwoofers? And I'll tell you the answer I give, and then maybe you can tell me if you agree or not. So if you're choosing between the 1723 versus 1723S, which is the smaller version, if you've got two subs, I would go with the 1723S. I'm sorry, the 1723 monitor, and then do the bass management and have your dual subs produce the bass below 80 hertz, as opposed to going with a smaller tower that has a little bit less dynamic range and sensitivity. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree. And you also have more control in, as you mentioned, in the bass management. And then you can also, I mean, even in most cases, you would cross them at maybe 60 to 80 hertz anyways to get the smoothest crossing between the subwoofers and the speakers. And in most cases, even though you get some advantages in using the tower and cross them at maybe 60 to have this more performance in the crossing there, but still performance per money, I would say the monitor with a couple of subwoofers will be a killer.
Yeah, I agree. It's a much easier setup to manage too. You know, when you have two subs, bass management, you don't get any type of phase issues between trying to match up full range speakers with subwoofers. Most people can't handle that. So it's always something I recommend. So another question I had is, how come you guys never run sales? You never have Black Fridays, you never have holiday sales. What's going on with that? The price seems very fixed.
Yeah, I mean, we never do sales. We never do Black Fridays. We even give a heads up in the beginning of November. I say, hey, if you want our speakers, don't wait. It won't get cheaper. And like you started out with in the beginning, it's the value for the money. It's we cut deep on our profits, and we just set a profit making on the profits that needs to be, yes, the company needs to grow so we can invest in new products and be here in 10 years for the customers when they need us for services, right? So we can have a growing team and growing company, but still our mentality is completely different from most other brands. I won't throw them under the bus. They are doing great. I mean, they do well of what they do. It doesn't fit our cup of tea. We just want to give the best product and the best experience end to end for the customers. And that's why you can't, when you have already cut to the bone, you can't cut any further. So that's why we have one price for everyone. We even state that by having the 365 price guarantee. So if you buy a system at $5,000 or something else, and we reduce that price for some reason, 4,500, 285 days after you have bought it, we refund you the difference. So that is kind of a statement that we stand behind our statements, and then that's the reason. You can't cut deeper and to avoid loss. So that's it. I mean, we have free shipping, free return shipping in the US and in Europe. 10 years warranty.
Is that a 60-day policy or 45-day policy?
It's a 60 days policy. We have up to 10 years warranty. So yeah, it's we feel our mentality, again, coming back to the customer is the center of our universe. A risk should never be placed on the customer. So if we can avoid putting any sort of risk on the shoulders of the customers, we will avoid it. But this kind of mentality of the pricing, most of them understands. Some of them asks, gonna get a discount? And we tell them no. What about if I buy 4 subwoofers? We don't do discounts because it's the same profit for us.
Yeah, I got you.
So,
well, the 60-day return policy is pretty amazing. I mean, the best way to really understand if you're going to like a speaker is to try it out in your own house, right? So you guys are giving up to 2 months risk-free. That speaks volumes for your quality of your product as well as your confidence of your product.
And we always encourage the customers to, because if you bought a product from us and they say, hey, I want to return it, and then we try to engage with the customer to say, hey, is there anything that we can help you with? Because especially from a subwoofer point of view, you know how easy you can mess up.
Yes.
By the simplest thing, you have done it 1,000 times, but you screwed it up anyways. And then you go over it and then you fight it, right? So it's it is something that we encourage everyone, even before buying, but also if they consider to return it, that we encourage them so we can go deep and see if we can analyze the system and if there's something off. Sometimes we find it. Sometimes you have a product that it doesn't fit everyone, right? You can't have a speaker that fits everyone. So
yeah. So another thing that I see pop up in the comments occasionally on YouTube or in the forums is people say, "Oh, they may be great speakers, but even though they're a Norwegian company, they're being manufactured in China." And I'd like to hear your comments on that, because the reality is most of our products we consume that are electronics are still made in China. It doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing if the quality control is good. And the same people complaining about the product being made in China are doing that complaint on their Chinese-made phones. So
Yep.
what are your thoughts on that? What's the reason behind the Chinese manufacturing, and what kind of QC do you guys maintain to make sure your quality is really good?
I can tell you that we are driving the manufacturer crazy with our level of excellence in terms of everything that we do, and including the QC. We know the pain when we have products out there, and then let's say you ship a container, and then it's a problem with most of them, because if you see one problem, you see probably of the rest of the chain on that production, because it's China mass production in high volumes. We did vet out the best vendors, and the vendors we are using has a high ethical work environment. They have a modern production, safety, and everything that's in alignment with our own standards. So yes, you can get the worst. I think that you can get the worst kind of maybe productions in China, whatever it is, but you can also get the best ones. So I think that mentality that China is a bad way of manufacturing, and by all means, people may have their own political views of how things is working in this world, but at the end of the day, we just want the best speaker for the money and still keep the ethical manufacturing in alignment. Then I think that's the most important for us, because obviously, if we did it in the US, you could double the price, and I'm not so sure if we could just go to the US or go to Europe to get the same level of the quality and the details, the tooling, and the engineering we got from these vendors are amazing. So we have vetted out many other vendors too in the US, in Europe. That is not easy. So for us, it was we have had an incredible good partnership with the vendor or the production in China. So we will be there for a long time, but we can never say never.
Gotcha. So here's another common question I get. When people look at your product line, obviously you've got a lot of home theater centric stuff. You got surround speakers, you got powered subwoofers. Would you say that your speaker line is more geared towards cinema, or is it more geared towards music, or do you think they're mutually exclusive because they do everything right for both types of reproduction?
Definitely both. I mean, we design our speakers purely from a musical point of view. If it doesn't work for music, it doesn't work for home theater. If it's a great speaker for music, it will also be a great speaker for home theater. That's pretty simple. However, the key basics needs to be aligned, right? I mean, the dynamics, power handling, low distortion, and so forth. So those aspects has to be in place from a musical speaker's perspective, if you're going to use that for a more dynamic experience from a home theater. So our speakers are always designed and vetted through critical listening point of view and measurements and design-wise from a purely two-channel listening experience. And also our subwoofers are, I mean, many people, not most people, but many people are seeing a speaker brand like ours as a home theater brand, as long as you have listed a center channel surround channels, and the subwoofers. And that's kind of how they see it. But the thing is that our subwoofers are also, I would say, one of the few subwoofer brands that can be implemented in really high-end, high-quality music systems. Even our 1723 2S is one of the better sounding, dynamic, musical subwoofers, which we think they can compare with anything in the market at any price point. And so again, it's tough words, but it's kind of what we back up with all the benefits we give for the customers.
One thing I like about your subs is that they're not the common footprint of a big sub, right? Most subs are just a big rectangular box or a big square box. Yours take up less footprint because they're higher, they're taller, because you got the dual firing side woofers instead of just having them front firing. I think that really helps integrate sometimes when people have tight spaces. And I guess what were your thoughts behind doing the dual drivers? Is it a distortion benefit? Is it an output benefit? Or a lot of companies are just doing single driver subs in a large box with a big amp. You guys pretty much all your high-end subs are dual driver.
Yeah. I mean, Thomas is doing a great job in designing these products. And the thing is that, especially for the all the products have speakers, subwoofers. We're always about dynamics, power handling and dynamics, and also the sound stage and the tonality and so forth needs to be set. But the thing is with the dual opposing is when you are canceling out the force factor. So the movement you have in the cabinet, the resonance or the vibrations in the cabinet from a singular driver is totally canceled out when you have a push-push dual opposing drivers. And that extends the dynamics of the subwoofers pretty much. I mean, if you do an A/B testing of a singular and a dual opposing driver configuration, it is quite a different dynamics aspects on it. So that's purely that's the first one. That's the first factor that we did it. And we didn't want the on those subwoofers, we didn't want the drivers in front. It just looked better to have it on the sides, but that was the kind of the key point to have it. And obviously, more driver surface, more power handling, lower distortions, and so forth.
Right. So you guys have made incredible roads into the domestic market over the last year or so. How are you keeping up with shipping demands here? Is everything coming from overseas, or do you have distribution locally here to support the domestic market?
We are now finally keeping up with the demand. It has, when we launched in the US in last year in 21 in August, we had an incredible growth and we had issues keeping up. We can't only blame on COVID. COVID only extended the lead time by a couple of months, but it was like a continuous thing. So we were growing the sales in the US while upping the production, but we grew more. And when you have a 6 months lead time, you're kind of running back, right? So you have back orders and struggling with that. So, but now in the beginning of summer, we're up to speed and we try really hard to keep up with the demand. But it is the demand in the US is taking a lot of momentum. That's for sure. It's
awesome.
It has been incredible for us.
So I'm going to put you on the spot now. I want to know. I always want to know the roadmaps for companies. I want to know what the future of Arendal Sound is. Are you guys going to have speakers that surpass the 1723, or are you going to have speakers that maybe desktop products or flush mount products or in ceiling? We need Atmos speakers. Where are those coming from? I guess I have a lot of questions about where your product direction is going over the next couple of years.
We do have Atmos speakers. It's the 1961 height and the 1723 height S, actually. We just didn't certify them as Atmos because of the certification, and we didn't want to pass on the extra cost for the customer. But we are always working on something. And the next thing will be something of a new category, which is not replacing anything that we have today. It's I would say it's too early to say anything, but rest assured that we will never be a company that's going to have everything. Everything that we do with excellence is kind of to nail down on a few things and do them with excellence. So when we launch something, it's not going to be a mediocre product. It's always going to over deliver in our stance. We can't start deviate from that fact, concept now. Then we will be in the deep. So yeah, I can't. Yeah, well, maybe you can, trick Thomas to relieve something, next time.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of tech questions we could ask Thomas on our next interview session. When I said Atmos, I meant flush mount in ceiling, because I do get a lot of people that, it's difficult to put high channels for a lot of people. So in ceiling is really a great alternative. And I'm hoping you guys are working on something like that, because it would be nice to have an entire Arendal system with the in ceiling speakers to complement it.
Let's say there's a chance for it to come.
Awesome. Well, Jan, I appreciate you dropping all this history on Arendal Sound. I'm excited about the brand. I see a lot of the commenters here are fans and owners of your products. That speaks volumes. The fact that you guys stand behind your product, you have that very generous return policy, the shipping quality of the packaging speaks volumes when you open these products. And just the sound quality. I mean, everything we reviewed for you guys so far is just done really well on our channel. Very little comments or criticisms to make about the product. So that's awesome. Love working with you guys. I'm here for the journey to learn more about what's coming down the pipe. Want to have you back on, want to have Brandon, want to have Terry, Thomas, and just get more knowledge when it's here, because we just want to follow your journey as it goes along.
Yep. We are here, and just reach out whenever you need us, Gene. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, guys, I hope you like this video. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics or ask questions. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.